Thank you.
Hey, that picture of your daughter, she looked like she was 15 years old.
Yeah.
How old is she?
Pretty much. It's the sun. I think that the sunglasses and she does not look like she's an 11-year-old. That's for sure.
I know. And that one, normally she doesn't, but in that one picture, I was
all the aspects, all the pieces. My sister's like, why does she look like she's 25? She sent me a text.
I'm not the
and
only
I was
one.
like, because she does. And she was like, okay, great. By the way, are those adult sunglasses? I'm like, yeah, that's why she looks like she's 25.
Yeah. Do you know why Shay wasn't on yesterday? Pam?
I'm like finally coming and chilling out. My boyfriend
so I don't get
seen the whole house.
my website, my so this doesn't crash on us.
Oh shush.
All right. We're recording. Perfect. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Is nobody talking? Because I can't hear anybody.
I was you, but you didn't hear me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what's going on.
I hear you. Yeah, I heard someone say something about Shay. Is she okay?
I don't know. I gotta message her. Yeah,
Okay.
for whatever reason, these weren't working. Maybe they're on mute.
Okay.
So I had them plugged in and I was like, all of a sudden everybody's really quiet. Let me try again.
Oh yeah, they were on mute.
Can you hear us now?
I'm like, it's so weird. I can't even hear background noises. What's going on? Usually you can hear like clink, clink, little things happening. Technology.
Remember we were talking about the plantar fasciitis thing yesterday? So weirdly enough, one of my friends posted that she has it, and I was like, oh, I might know some info for you, but then I totally forgot what to tell her.
I usually ask people when they say anything, anytime somebody says, oh, I have this thing going on, like I have plantar fasciitis, I have low back issue, I have whatever, I always look at what's going on above it and below it. So like with the feet, it's like there's not anything below it, but look what's going on above it.
She's a runner, so.
Her calves are probably super tight.
Okay. That's what I was gonna say, and that she needs to build up that muscle in her foot.
Yes. Yep.
Thanks.
There's Melissa. Melissa Mel. 1, 2, 3, 4. Who are we waiting on? Oh, Alex. Who? And she wasn't. Oh no, she knew we're doing this. Did she know we're doing this today? Was she still on then? I did post it, but okay.
Oh, did she leave early?
She left because yesterday was her daughter's birthday, but she had already told me that.
Oh, right.
I'll stay till whenever. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. And then she messaged me like, okay, I'm leaving. Like she didn't want to say it in the middle of,
yeah.
I'm like, okay, bye. So that's fine. All right, well, we'll get started. And if Shay or Alex shows up because they saw, I get it. Like part of the reason, I don't know if anybody has, I know some of you have seen the Facebook page, but I went through today and organized. I was waiting for stuff to upload and I was like, oh, I'm going to organize this Because I know one of the things that we were running into was, you know, I'd have a class or there'd be a Zoom going on and I'd be getting messages like, hey, where's the Zoom link? I can't find it. So I just created some hashtags. So pinned at the top of the group is a message that has the hashtags listed in it. So whenever there's a yoga practice, it'll be hashtag yoga. Whenever there's a meeting like this in a Zoom link or whatever, it'll be hashtag meetings. So I have them recordings. I have hashtag recordings, which is like, so after this is no longer live, I'll save it and upload it back to the Facebook page and add that hashtag in. And then assignments and content are the other two. So assignments are actually things that you guys are working on, and content is kind of all the other stuff. So if I'm like, here's an article or here's a video or here's a whatever, I will, content will be the hashtag for that. But those are all listed. And so the same holds true if you guys like have questions, you can hashtag that as well. Because sometimes what happens is, I don't know about you, but my Facebook, I get like 4 billion Facebook notifications in a day. And I will tell you how I resolve them. I click on the thing and write, mark all as read.
Mine always has 27 or like.
Right. So I was like, okay, this is a way that I can actually consciously go into the group and like search hashtag questions. And if you guys have posted a question and put the hashtag to it, it'll show up. I'll get a list of them, of any questions that have been posted. And I gave some other, and if you're like, hey, I came up with another one in that pinned message, you can just add a comment and be like, we can use this one too. And then I will add it into the message so that it gets listed. So if you have like something that you want to ask, share,
I was just thinking how genius it is for you to do the hashtags, which is great. And then as you were saying that, I was remembering I did a class on Facebook before, and what the person did was, just for future for you, if you wanted to do this, she had like different videos for each week. It was like week 1 with videos, whatever. And she asked people, some people still did because people are idiots and they just, don't listen and just do whatever. Some people would still comment under the videos, but she'd have like a discussion board. So that discussion board is where she had it all. So that would be pinned at the top, ask in the discussion board. And then she can easily just get rid of that. So it's clean for the next class that comes in. So it's easier for her to like clean it up, but.
Yep. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And you know what? I was trying to figure all this stuff out and I was like, God, why is it not letting me do this stuff? And I did all this organizing and then I was like, oh, I'm not an admin. So I sent Jane a message like, can you make me an admin? She's like, done. I'm like, okay, well, I would have had a different avenue. I could have saved files and whatever.
If you end up doing classes then in the future.
Yep.
Or different whatevers, I don't know. It doesn't matter. The hashtags were great. That's such a great idea to have.
Yeah, because you can just search it. There's like a little search bar and you can be like, oh, damn, what were the assignments?
I'm so glad because I didn't write it down. I couldn't find my notebook anywhere. I finally have one to write notes in.
Well, and then sometimes what happens is, what happens in Facebook, as a little, Facebook 101 is that when somebody comments on something, it moves the post to the top of the group.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, cool. Somebody commented that they were excited about yoga in the Zoom link from 3 weeks ago.
Right.
And now that's at the top. And then you're clicking on the wrong, it's like the Zoom link doesn't exist. And you're like, I'm trying to get into this meeting or whatever. So yeah, just trying to come up with a system that would be easy enough for any of us to search. So cool. So how are you guys? Questions? What's going on? What are you needing from me or from Jane tonight?
I didn't do anything yoga
More
today.
yoga.
More yoga.
Need more yoga.
Yeah, that is what you need, yoga.
I'm working from home now and I worked 10 hours just sitting on my butt all day. And I'm like, I need some yoga right now.
Hey Mar, can you grab me the yoga tune-up ball on the kitchen table? I'm going to show you guys something that you can do. Speaking of sitting on your butt for 10 hours, I do that. Even as a yoga teacher, I sit on my butt for 10 hours. And what's interesting is that I hear that a lot from yoga teachers. Like even my people that are like full-time yoga teachers and teach 18 classes a week or whatever, they are either running between classes or on their computers or on their technology promoting themselves, marketing, advertising, all of those types of things. So there is a lot of time spent in front of the computer, on your phone, on a tablet or whatever, even if you were a full-time yoga teacher. So add some, doing other work and having to like sit for 10 hours a day. It's a good time for sure.
Yeah.
A note on that, I did figure out, I'm having a sales page glitch, but I have created a course for you guys, a course on my website, which is yoga. And it's for you guys. It's it'll give you access to all of the live classes that I teach, and it'll give you access to all of the recordings of those live classes. So you'll just have to sign in one spot, and you'll be like, oh, here are the classes, and oh, here's tomorrow's class. Okay, great. I'll click on that. Because I'll just keep adding them to your membership. And so there'll be
do the classes live, or are they just pre-recorded? Yeah.
I do them live, and then they're saved on there so that you can do them whenever.
That's so good, because I was telling my husband last night, like, I was feeling sore yesterday.
I know.
Not in a bad way, but in a good way.
Yeah.
And every time I do yoga with you,
With Pam.
I get something out of it that I've never, like, I don't get if I do it on my own. Like,
Right.
because it really, activating those muscles. And I feel like I've actually, like, worked my body rather than just stretching. And I love it. So.
My butt cheeks are so sore today. I went on a
Mine
walk
too.
with the kids,
Yes.
and I'm like,
It feels so
That's
good
what's
though.
hurting. Yes,
That's
that's
awesome.
what's hurting me today too. Like I'm feeling it.
yeah. I was sore from her. I always got sore from Pam's classes. It was a love-hate, because I'm like, oh, I'm here again. I have to do what she says, and then
Yeah.
and then it works though. It was good. It was a great class. Like, I always loved it, but
Yeah.
they
And so
were harder. They were harder yoga classes than
yeah.
regular. Regular, you're just kind of phoning it out. You're just kind of like stretching and like
Right.
going
But
through
I
it.
feel like I'm challenging myself more now. So
Yeah.
it's good.
We can do that in our classes, like Pam, so people can feel it, and not like all our classes that we go to.
And even if it's like one little thing where you're like, oh, you know what activation I've mastered turning on the muscles in the low back. So every single time people come to class, they're going to turn on the muscles in the low back, and I'm going to teach them how. Right? Even if that's your thing, they're like, oh yeah, when I go to Melissa's classes, my low back's always turned on, but it's so strong now. I mean, that's what starts to happen is people start saying like, I don't have low back pain anymore. I'm like, oh, amazing. Love to hear it. Yeah.
Well, I even think about like how I sit, like from the first weekend we were together and Jane was talking about our posture. So every time I'm sitting now, I'm constantly thinking about like,
I know. I'm
okay,
always like,
yes, are my shoulders rolled back and down, and am I sitting right? And it's just those things that I'm just more aware of now that are going to help me personally, but also help down the road when
Right.
I'm helping others. So
One of the
I
things
was
that
on.
oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I was on yogajournal.com last night, just kind of looking around. And it was talking about yoga teaching and finding different classes or instructors, because there's so many different styles of instruction and types of teachers. And,
Yep.
I was just thinking how, it's so cool that I was led to this class and this group, because it's just everything that I wanted to get from it. It's like, that's what you guys have brought to the table. And so it's just kind of, it's like fate. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Jane's like, I know, that's why I picked her. That's why I talked her into doing this.
It's so funny. Speaking of postures, like I'm always the one like, nagging at my boyfriend, like, look at your back right now, your posture. I was at work once and I was at a test thing, taking pictures of someone's eyes, and my coworker comes in, she goes, Melanie, you have such great posture. I'm like, thank you. Got it embedded in here.
It's funny. One of the Instagram stories I used I did a neck and shoulders class a few weeks ago, and I had a picture of Marley. So on this futon, she's actually over here painting. On this
Hi,
futon,
Marley.
I just clicked off the page. She can't. They all said hi, Marley. I have headset on. So, but the desktop computer is right there. So she will lay on the futon with her feet laying up on the back, with the wireless mouse next to her and the keyboard, and she just lays down and does her work. And then, so I had that picture, and then the next picture was Jeff at the kitchen table on his laptop.
I saw
this, like, completely,
Yep.
like I don't know how he does this. Actually, I do know how he does it. He has a bunch of spine issues. But, so his back's like this at the computer, and I was like, I saw him sitting there, and I'm like, that's awful. I'm gonna take a picture and use it for my social media. Quick.
What not to do.
Yeah, and I got a ton of people were like, oh my God, like, if you can't lay like this while you're on your computer and you're sitting like this, I bet your upper back hurts. You know, people were like, I want to come to your shoulders class. I'm like, great. Mine? So one of the things from sitting, just kind of as a note for you guys, kind of a wonky, I have a wonky angle, but see if I can do this without, Marley, can you come stand right here and hold this? I'll get an assistant coming to help me. Just hold it right like that, perfect. So, ooh, I'm attached. So this top of the thigh bone, so if my legs are down, I never sit with my legs down, but this kind of top of the thigh bone out on the outside, if you stick your thumb in there, like if you had jeans on, you stick your thumb there, you're probably gonna be like, ah! That's your TFL.
I have so much pain on my TFL. I always want to rub it really in there, like.
Yeah, do it. Great. So I actually use this. like I was like, oh, I sat at the kitchen table and I was like, oh, my low back. The TFL is a culprit of the low back and of the IT band. Right. So the line along the band that goes from the outer hip to the outer knee, and the low back, really like lumbar region, sacral region of the low back. And so massaging those out can be really helpful. And so I literally will take the ball, stick it in that spot, and like lean sideways up against the wall and just move. And it's just enough of a relief that I'm like, oh, okay. Now I can go back and sit but when you're sitting, I lay on the couch or I sit and I just take my thumbs and like dig them into both sides. I usually like lean back and just dig it into both sides and like kind of give yourself a little massage, and you'll find the spot. You'll find the spot on you that's like total junk. There's mine. You can't find it.
I know, like I'm pushing all around with my thumb and nothing's like hurting.
That's good.
So
That's good.
All right then.
But it's just something to keep aware of, especially if you're a sitter. Like if you're sitting at a desk, if you're doing a lot of sitting, and especially if you have low back stuff going on, like those two components tend to go hand
I'm gonna try that. I gotta figure out how you do that. But I always go like this too, like with my feet up and just like over here on this side.
Yep.
Rolling around in there. Oh, that feels so good. That kind of gets up in there.
Yeah, so you're hitting like piriformis, quadratus femoris. Yeah.
Right on my hardwood floor and everything. It's amazing.
Yeah, I usually stick one of these underneath.
Oh yeah, that's really getting in there.
And any kind of like the density of this is a pretty good size one. This is the medium yoga tune-up ball, but the you can go from really soft, like a tennis ball would be pretty soft, like a regular tennis ball, and then you notice sometimes like dog balls that are like tennis balls are a little bit harder because we don't want them to eat them, and then it kind of goes up from there. So like racket balls and handball balls work well. Anything that you can kind of play. And honestly, I use my thumb. I usually say, hey Marley, can I borrow your elbow? And I'll like lay down, I'm like, just drive, and she makes the point of her elbow and I like find the spot and I'm like, okay, push down. Whatever it takes to help release that stuff. But you can kind of play around. And honestly, you can buy these online. I have a ton of them, but that doesn't really help you. But they're great. It's a great tool to have. And Yoga Tune Up is one brand. I also have like the Rad rolling system. I have the Soma rolling system. I bought them all. Wanted to see which ones I use I use these for teaching classes because it's easy. Here's a pair, easy to use, but I have a bunch of systems myself. I am like
They're pretty cool to use during yoga. I've done some yoga classes where we use them, and it really gives you a massage, really deep. Nice.
Right.
I love it.
And the idea is that it's hitting the place where the muscles and the fascia are stuck together. So there's like achiness because muscles are jacked up, like from sitting. Because the thing is that even though muscles like to contract, like your hip flexors, the muscles that make the hips flex, that make the thigh bone come out in front of the pelvis, those muscles like to contract, but sitting doesn't contract them. It shortens them, which is different than contracting them, right? Because there's no engagement, which is why sometimes I'll like just put my hand on top of my knee and like press into my hand with my leg. And then I do the other side and I'm like, okay, that feels a little bit better. Because they do like to contract. So that's something you can kind of play with if you're sitting as well. Has anybody had a chance to watch the, Tammy, I know you said you watched the History of Yoga movie.
Yep, I saw it.
What did you guys think?
I thought it was good information, but I thought a lot of it was, some of it was hard to understand because of so much of the Sanskrit words they kept using. So then I think I wrote right after, so I watched that and then I watched the story of yoga right afterwards.
Okay.
And it brought it all together for me. Like it was a little bit more layman's terms and they kind of, but because I watched the history right before it just made more sense to me.
Yep.
So it was good.
I watched the story of yoga, not the history of yoga. I liked that one. I thought it was good.
Story of Yoga, yeah.
Yeah.
Are those on the Facebook? Because I haven't watched any of them. I actually was thinking of it last night. I read some of the yoga book that you gave us, the novel like one. I started it before, but then I didn't for a while, and then Melanie inspired me to get back on it. So I read that. But I wanted to ask about the movies. So those are on the Facebook page, so I can watch those.
Yes.
Yeah, they're just right on YouTube.
I know, but I just to know what the name of it is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the book, the Yoga Sutras that you gave us.
Yeah.
I'm so inspired by that book, but because it's definitely like a lot of Sanskrit and a little complex. Like I'm like 3/4 of the way. I'm like really taking my time with it. Like sometimes I'll like read a page over again because I'm like, I want to like really like grasp
absorb it.
And yeah. So it's like I started it like shortly after we got the books and stuff, and now I'm like 3/4 of the way. Like I said, I'm like trying to really absorb everything, but it's very it's super inspiring. There was a section of it that I read to my parents because I'm like, I love how this makes you think of things in a totally different way. And so I read them a section of it like a few days ago. And I'm like, you gotta hear this because I don't know. I love it. I love that book so far. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, and the thing about the Yoga Sutras is, first of all, there's like a billion different translations, right? As I said when we were first together, and it's dense. It's a lot of information. It's like a lot of content, even though it's like, you know, you read like a paragraph like this and you're like, okay, I need a week to absorb that. I need to read it 45 times in that week and I need a week to absorb that. And then maybe I'll come back to it in 5 years and I'll absorb it differently. That's really like what the situation is with the Yoga Sutras. And I really love that translation. And it's something that will continue to come back to. And each time you come back to it, you'll see it in a different light. That's just
awesome.
the way they're written. That's just the way they are, which is super cool. Any other thoughts? Any other things?
Question.
Yeah.
You mentioned that if we watched the 2-hour, I signed
Yeah,
up
yeah.
for it and I didn't get to watch it at the time, so I got the it's emailed to me.
The replay. Yep.
The replay, yeah. So you said that we could get hours for that. Do we just let you know? Like, do I just?
Yeah. Did
let
anybody
you know
else
that I
watch it?
watched
Jody, I know you watched it. Did
Not
anybody
yet.
else get a chance to watch it?
Not
Yeah.
yet.
So I want to discuss it once. If people like, if you've watched it, once enough people have watched it, we'll talk about it.
Good. 'Cause I'm like, what just happened?
No.
Now I want to watch it. Now I want to watch it more. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Oh, I want some of that.
I don't know, man. I was just like, I feel like this is way over my head.
Right. Well, and I will tell you that when I was in my 200 hour, we had to do a book report, and we had to write we had all these choices of books, and there were people that wrote about a translation of the Yoga Sutras, and I was like, I couldn't get through page 1. That's vastly over my head. And that happens like that. And then as you go through, now I'm teaching about it. So, I mean, as you go through time, as you have more experiences, as you see the relevancy, as things, just like Tammy, you were saying, I watched the history of yoga, and then I watched,
The story of it, yeah.
The story of yoga, and then things clicked.
Yep.
That's kind of a really cool, that's what happens. That's what happens as you're on this journey. And from a teaching perspective, you guys are like babies on this journey, right? You're just starting to go, oh, yeah, what if I looked at this with the lens of a teacher? What if I looked at this in a different way than just, did I like the class? Was it good? What was my experience like? That kind of thing. So that's the cool thing about a teacher training, really. So. Has anybody looked at what are the poses that turn on the muscles of the low back?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
And the yoga journal I love that website. I absolutely love it. It's so incredibly helpful. Yeah. So many resources, organized so perfectly. So I was looking it up other places, and then I wish I went there first because it just explained everything. So it was nice.
Yep. What did the rest of you use as resources?
Can I backtrack? Oh, sorry. Can I just backtrack a question? I asked it, but I was muted, so you guys couldn't hear me.
Oh.
Tammy, did you sign up for the class that Jody took that I missed on Saturday?
Oh, the thing on
the 2-hour?
The Kundalini one, right?
Oh, yeah.
You did? I wonder if you can forward me the email, because I didn't sign up. I wonder if it would work, the link.
Oh, yeah, I'll look.
You can still go in.
And it'll be there, the live one?
Yes,
I didn't even look, but.
You can still go. It's on our group Facebook page. If you click on it, it will still take you to the link.
Oh, okay.
It'll still send you the link. I mean, I have it as well, and I could certainly send it to you. But
I meant to do it on Saturday, but I just didn't have time.
I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100% sure. I think it only lasts for a couple of days. He usually has an expiration date on the things he sends out. So.
I think it's 7 days. I think.
Okay.
I could be wrong. But yeah, thanks for reminding me that, because I would have forgot. Do it today.
You like that one. Here's your replay. What does it say? Will be expiring in just a few days is all it says.
Thank you for looking.
Replay expires in 3 days, 8 hours, 28 minutes, and 57 seconds. I mean, if you want to know down to the seconds.
Okay.
Get on there, Melissa.
Yep. If I want it, I need to do it today. Or tomorrow morning.
Yep.
Before the.
So the poses, I thought we were to find one each or something.
Yeah.
That's Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was talking to you guys collectively when I said poses.
Oh, okay.
What did you find? What stood out for you?
I
go ahead.
found bridge pose.
Tell me a little bit about, or tell us a little bit about bridge pose.
So I wrote down the muscles that it contracts. The rectus and transverse abdominis, gluteus muscles, the erector spinae, and the hamstrings.
Yep. Bridge is a great pose. You will notice, because it doesn't take a lot of effort. Does everyone know what bridge pose is? Okay, cool. So bridge doesn't take a lot of effort to get into. Like you could do it with very little effort, very little muscle activation, right? To move the bones through space. Or you could do it with a lot of muscle activation, but you've already realized this about yoga. There's lots of things that you can do with very little muscle activation, just enough, right? Because when you're like walking through your house, are you walking and contracting the muscles as you go? Are you like hip flexors?
No, we should be though. We'd be in better shape if we did.
Right.
Sometimes I do little funny things to like work out as I'm doing, walking around, like power walking,
Yeah.
like we should be doing that more often.
And that will just contract, any sort of contracting the muscles. I remember watching, this was years ago. You guys remember Fran Drescher from The Nanny?
Oh my gosh, the nanny.
She was on like,
I love her.
I don't know, she was on some like nighttime talk show, and they were asking her how she stays in such good shape, and does she work out? Like, what does she do? What is her? And she said, oh, I just squeeze my butt. She starts like bouncing up and down, squeezing her butt, sitting in a chair. And I was like, and it was in that moment, and this was like years before I was a yoga teacher, I was like, huh, interesting. And that has always stuck with me, and I think about it every time I teach yoga.
She does that. She's like power walks everywhere. She's like working her whole body with her little walk.
Right. Exactly.
We should all be doing that. We'd all be so much,
We would not be gaining the quarantine 15 or whatever it is. Yeah. I was eating
pretty good. I'm only up like 6 ounces.
That's awesome. I love that you're like 6 ounces. All right. What are some other poses? So bridge pose is definitely a pose that activates the back line of the body. It activates the hamstrings, the glutes, the deep abdominal muscles, as well as the muscles of the low back, especially if you anteriorly tilt the pelvis, right? So you can like create posterior tilt and you get a little bit more length, but if you stay in anterior tilt, if you cue them to like send the butt back, anterior tilt, shorten the muscles on the low back, and then to lift into bridge, which is if you've done bridge pose with me, that's how I cue it. And it's in one of the recordings that you guys will get once I figure out how to funnel you to a sales page. Then it turns on even more. So the beauty of any sort of muscle group is that you can contract it some, and you can add a little bit more onto it by, kind of adding in other elements. And bridge is a perfect example of that, right? Because you can not really, you can keep your knees bent at 90 degrees and not really engage the hamstrings, or you can press down into the heels and pull the feet towards you and really engage the hamstrings. Right. What else? What are some other poses that you guys came up with that
Locust.
the low back? Locust pose, yeah. Tell me a little bit about that. What does it engage?
From what I remember, it was like obviously the lower back, the legs, the arms. Yeah, I don't know. Like you're pretty constricted. Your core, right? I would think.
It can, depends on how you cue it.
Yeah, maybe not. But
Any of the, actually, transverse abdominis, which is the deepest layer of core muscles, they're like our girdle. So has anybody ever taken a Pilates class?
Mhm.
So in Pilates, they talk about hugging in. The muscles that hug in are the transverse abdominis. That's their job, is to like support, hold your organs in, support you. And that's one of the muscle groups that helps you to anteriorly tilt the pelvis, right? So the hugging in helps to stabilize as you start, and then you can start to like, so if you like hug everything in and then you start to lengthen, which is what we do in anterior tilt, right? We start to lengthen. The transverse abdominis hugs in as you're doing that. So that's basically, if you breathe or move, you can use the transverse abdominis to engage you. You can do it right now. You can just hug in. And it's funny when you try to teach like kids how to engage their transverse abdominis. When we're teaching kids yoga, and kids think, and I remember going through this with Marley, when I would be like, oh, like squeeze your belly in to support your spine. It's like, like they've got to hold their breath. They do that kind of pulling in instead of just a hugging in of the transverse. So yeah, transverse abdominis. All the erector muscles along the spine, so multifidi, erector spinae, all of those. There's like, if you look at, I usually use my anatomy app for all of this stuff, but if you look at, yeah, my anatomy nap. Marley's making fun of me. I'm trying to find a good picture of it. Oh, look at that. So if that's locust pose, right? You would imagine that that shortens all of the muscles along the back of the body, including the low back. So this whole line. And there's like this weird controversy that if you squeeze your butt in a back bend, that it compresses the low spine. It's lies, all lies. So you do need to, I mean, your glutes are the muscles that create extension of the thigh bone, right? They're the muscles, when you turn your butt on, if you're walking and say you're power walking, you're walking in your house to get exercise. When in your stride does your butt turn on?
When you hit with your heel.
When you hit with your heel, when you press down through your heel, there's some activation there. When is through range of motion, when is the time? Is that really, when it comes in front of you, it's really the front of your leg.
The end of the step, like when you're up,
yeah.
right? Like,
that's extension of the thigh bone. That's when the leg comes back behind the body. That's when the gluteals turn on. So all three of them, the little, medium, and large, all turn on. And that's necessary in order for the thigh bone to move back. Those are the muscles that move the thigh bone behind the body. So if the thigh bone has to move behind the body at a back bend, then those muscles have to turn on. And there was, for years in the yoga world, it was like, don't turn on your glutes when you're doing back bends, you'll injure your low back, which is not accurate. I don't even know where it came from in particular, but probably it came from people not turning on the muscles in their low back and ending up with back issues. So cool. What other, I'll just give you a little hint. In your anatomy book, the key poses of yoga, you don't have to run and get it, but there's a whole section on back bends. And what we said yesterday was back bends are going to be the poses that turn on the muscles in the low back, right? Definitely. There are others. There are definitely other places you can turn it on. But back bends is definitely a place where those muscles are going to turn on. Okay. What other poses?
What about squat?
Yeah. Tell me more about that.
Well, if you anteriorly tilt, it turns your low back on. And if you're keeping your spine straight, you're using the muscles in the top of your upper back.
Mm-hmm.
There was, just to add to that, there was a pose that I looked at yesterday called the garland pose, that it was kind of like a squat that looks, you're activating your low back. So that was one that I had looked at.
Yeah. So did you look that up on like Yoga Journal, or where did you find that?
Yoga Journal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Sphinx pose.
Yep.
Cobra. Yeah.
Pigeon.
Yeah.
Oh,
Tell me more about that.
I don't
Which
know
version?
What you know,
where? What would you be doing in pigeon if your low back was turned on?
You'd be tilting.
You'd be tilting where?
Your pelvis.
Yeah. What do you think your upper body would be doing in pigeon if your low back was turned on?
You'd be upright.
Yeah. Yep.
Is there a different name for that variation of it?
No.
Okay.
But no, it just tends to be a more active pose, right? And when people hear pigeon, they think what gets called in yin gets called sleeping swan or sleeping pigeon is the like folding over the front leg pose. And there's not low back activation there. I mean, there could be. You could anteriorly tilt the pelvis and turn the low back on, but most people don't. And you guys know this because until I say, do this to activate this and turn this on, do you feel that? You're like, oh, right. There is muscle there. Okay, cool. Yeah. What other poses?
Upward facing dog.
Upward facing dog. Yep. Absolutely. That's actually a big one because it's because you're on the tops of your feet and your hands, so you really have to contract the muscles that create a back bend, which would be the muscles, the erector spinae multifidi, quadratus, the QLs, quadratus lumboris, the gluteal muscles. All of that stuff really has to be turned on in order to keep your body safe. Otherwise, we just dump it into that. And that's the thing about back bends. And that's why I was like, let's start with low back, because it's really easy to just kind of drop all of the weight of your body right into that region, right into the lumbar spine, because the lumbar will take it. It's been taking it for years for most of us, right? It's stressed and stretched and strained, and it just kind of, it's the kid that's easy to manipulate, that kid that you could get to do anything, not our own children, but when we were kids. That's what the low back is in the body. It'll take over anybody's job, and it will do all of the work, and then it will burn out. What other poses?
Staff pose.
Staff pose. Tell me more about that.
I think same idea with the anterior tilt and sitting straight.
Yeah, isn't it like any of those, lengthen through the spine, Upavishta Konasana, wide-legged forward fold, Dandasana, a seated staff pose, even like the forward folding staff pose, even bound angle, right? Half what? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Half lift.
Yeah, I mean, if you were in class yesterday, I mean, how did I cue that? I started that half lift with like anterior tilt, lift the chest a little bit, right? Draw the chest forward, squeeze the shoulder blades together, look forward, create a back bend, right? And then all of the muscles from the base of the skull to the tail are turned on, right? The entire back. So when you start thinking about how you get people to activate their low back, it doesn't have to be like they don't need to be able to do this, right? They don't need to be able to, because I hear all the time people will say like, I can't do full wheel, so I guess I don't have a back bend practice. I'm like, doesn't make sense, right? And there are always going to be limiting factors, and we'll look at that more. We'll look at the limiting factors that get in the way for people. But at the end of the day, if you have a group of poses that turn on the low back, when somebody says, hey, I can't do back bends, you can start to teach them how to turn on the muscles in their low back, which is the area of the body that counters our normal, like rounded, you know, our posterior tilt, flexion at the spine of the low back, especially during this time where people are doing a ridiculous amount of sitting, either on the couch or at their desk or whatever. You start to teach people to turn on the muscles of their low back, and you can start by practicing yourself. If you're sitting at your desk for 10 hours a day, if you're, you know, like if you're hanging with your kids, or you're playing with your animals, or you're sitting and reading, or whatever the case may be, that you're having the opportunity when you're just kind of like, oh, all right, I'm going to just engage those muscles a little bit. I've been sitting around. I haven't been doing much today. I'm going to try to keep my low back healthy. This is how I'm going to do it. And the more that you practice that, the more you start to see, oh, I could do this, you know, when I get up in the morning and I fold forward because I want to stretch out my back after being in bed. And then I like lengthen out and I bring my hands to my thighs and I engage all the muscles and I hold there for 10 breaths. And then you start to realize, oh, I can teach that to my grandmother, right? Because the same action, you can be sitting in a chair. My mom says to me all the time, when are you going to teach chair yoga? And I said, when are you going to do it? Because I could just tell you what to do sitting in a chair. You don't have to be in a class. And she's been sewing. My mom is like big into sewing, but my mom lives in Massachusetts and she's at my sister's in Florida because she went for 2 weeks, 2 months ago. Like she was supposed to come home on March 20th. And yeah.
How's your sister doing?
My sister has sold her house. Like they have 2 houses. They've sold one, have moved completely into the other one. And my mom's doing all of this stuff for her. My sister's working full time, whatever. So my sister's loving my mom being there because my mom is doing everything. But my mom's been sewing, and she's like at home, she has all of her sewing tools and her rotary cutters and her mats for cutting. And there she's like using scissors over a table. And she said to me 3 days ago, oh God, my neck's hurting so bad. And this is what I said to her, it's too bad you don't know anybody that can help you with that. And she was like, what can I do? And I have one sister that was like, don't you have any pain meds or anything? And I was like, can you just start engaging the back of your neck? Like, can you just start pressing your head back into the cushion behind you or whatever? Like, there's really simple things that when you have an understanding of how muscles engage, whether it's the low back, whether it's the neck, shoulders, legs, you know, you're talking about our hip flexors, those types of things, hamstrings. It's something that you can practice. It's something that you can share. And then it's little pieces of starting to get comfortable with sharing yoga, right? Mel, sharing what you shared with your parents from the Yoga Sutras book, that's like getting comfortable with sharing yoga. It doesn't have to be like a structured teaching. It doesn't have to be like, I wrote out a sequence and we're going to do these things. It could be somebody who says, oh yeah, I would love to do some yoga. This is what people say. I'd love to do yoga. I just don't have time. And now people don't have that excuse. Like, oh, actually, you do have time. Yeah, most of us do. I have time because I'm not, even though I'm like, I work like a million hours, I have time because I'm not I don't have to be out in the world doing the other things that I normally do.
Mm.
It makes a difference. It makes like us being stuck at home definitely makes a difference. Yeah. So starting to see that there are some ways in which these poses kind of all come together, right? So we start talking about activating the low back, everything from wheel or upward facing bow, these like more kind of extreme back bends, dancer, even like the full extension dancers, or all of these back behind, even like the bound pigeon pose. There's a strap, he's using a strap. The body is using a strap in this picture, but usually what happens is both arms will come up and over. Those are all kind of really intense variations of a back bend. And then something like bridge, something like halfway lift, Dandasana, seated, the four-limbed, the staff pose. What else? Cobra. Locust pose. There's lots of things. There's lots of variations that you can use to engage the low back muscles. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to pick, and just like, you can do a little bit of research if you'd like, and I will tell you that on yogajournal.com, it says things like, you pick a pose like Dhanurasana, so bow pose, right? Yeah. So let's say bow pose, which is we sometimes call upward facing bow. Let's say this is the pose you're trying to get to. This is like the most challenging of the back bends, right? Let's just say that you choose, like, oh, that's a really challenging one. What are two poses that you would do that would activate the same muscles of the low back that you could level in before this, right? I'm not asking you to teach all the other pieces. We'll get to that. We'll teach all the other pieces. Just from a leveling, like that's the most challenging. What are two that are easier? The easiest, the next easiest, and then the most challenging. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yogajournal.com will tell you the answer to that. But what I want you to do is I want you to take a look at and see what's there, and then you use your anatomy books, use your manual, because she does talk about leveling of poses, and just start to see if you can understand why, right? Just by looking at like, oh, and part of it, so you look at the body position, try them out, right? If you're like, even if you're like, I can't do that pose, that's okay. Like, what does it feel like to do a chair pose with a low back, an arch in the low back, versus a cobra or a high cobra versus an upward facing bow, right? So kind of start to play around a little bit with your body, with the information and your body, to kind of look at back bends, low back activation. You got somebody that when things don't work for her, she's like, it's happening next to me. If anybody heard it, sorry. I'll be done soon. Okay, any other questions, thoughts, things that you feel like you need tonight? Okay, cool. All right, I will put together some more. I'm still getting creative. So I'm like, what else? How else can I make this? So if there are things that you're like, hey, I want to know more about this right now, just send me a message and let me know. Because I have like this much information that we need to like fit into our brains. And so I'm trying not to just like throw darts at a wall, and I'm trying to look at, okay, we have an understanding and a little bit more going on here, and then kind of go from there.
I think I would love to do this again, this little thing, and do like, while we were talking about all the different poses, I should have just been doing them. I did some, I did a little bit, but to actually have you walk us through it, because like we can, you know, just like slowly like this, like in this
Yeah.
class structure kind of.
Yeah.
Because I can like feel it, you know, like you
Mhm.
say it, you just walk us through it so well. It's just, we'll be hurting tomorrow. So even just sitting here, we should be engaging
Right.
all these things.
Yeah.
There's
And we
so
can
much
definitely-
to engage.
Yeah, and we can definitely do some of that. Absolutely. That's an easy thing. You guys
I
could
was
just
gonna ask you as I was doing it, like, could you just walk me through that? Because I want to engage, like bridge, for example.
Okay. We got times. We got 5 minutes.
Bridge, we got 5 minutes. I know, right? Bridge. I like bridge. I like how I do a good back stretch, almost like a lower back stretch, which is probably bad. I probably shouldn't be getting that out of bridge. That should be the last thing I get out of bridge, probably. But I always like, there's so much bridge, like in Melissa's Pilates class at the Y, there's a lot of bridge in her class. And I don't know, I just don't get out of it what I should. And one thing that Pilates always has you do is like in a bridge and then like lift a leg, you know? So you're like this. And I never like that because my back is weak. So I'm not holding it correctly. And so I usually don't do that one, maybe a little bit, but I usually don't do the one-legged.
What class is that? What class is that?
It's at the
Pilates.
YMCA. It's a Pilates class by a teacher, this Melissa. I don't know if you know of her, but she's a really great teacher.
She is a great teacher, yeah.
All of her classes that she does, she really knows her stuff. She's
Mhm.
a great teacher. I haven't done all of her classes. I'm afraid of some of them. I'm just like, I am not. This is crazy. But I've done quite a few. But
Yeah.
so the bridge, I don't do it good. I know you can tell me how to do it.
So if you
I
lay
don't
on,
remember your bridge.
if you lay on your back,
Yeah.
bend your knees, walk your feet in, and anybody that wants to hop in on this, feel free. Walk your feet in as close to your sit bones as you can. That means bring your feet in as close to your butt as you can. Your feet should be about sit bone width distance apart, which means that they should not be wider than your hips. They should be about the width of your hips. And then before you lift up, see if you can find an anterior tilt in your back. So send the butt back a little, get a little arch in the low back. You might have to press down with the elbows into the ground to let the middle chest lift a little. And then once you feel the muscles in the low back turn on, press into your inner heel. So not the outer edge of the heel, but the inner edge of the heel with like 5% of your effort, just until your hips lift up off the ground. Now engage the muscles of anterior tilt again, turn on the low back, press down into the inner heel and lift another inch or two. Keep the low back turned on and press down into your heels and lift as high as you can get your hips to go with the low back turned on. So keep anteriorly tilting the pelvis, press down into the inner heel, the big toe mound can press down. And then while you're pressing down, also isometrically pull the feet back towards you without actually moving them. Find the muscles of anterior tilt once again and try not to lose those. We have a tendency to try to lift the hips too high and then we lose that engagement. And then you can hold here.
Hold here, yeah.
You can come down whenever you're ready. When you come down, try to come down the same way. So maintain anterior tilt all the way until the back of the pelvis touches the ground. And then you can release. You can hug the knees in. You can windshield washer the legs from side to side, whatever you need.
Well, if you really do everything you just said and hold that, that's a really lot of work.
Yep.
I've been
Everything was
getting
like,
nothing out of my yoga practices in the past.
every single
doing it
muscle
wrong
was
the whole time.
engaged. Everything was engaged there. I can't tell you one thing that didn't feel engaged right now.
Right. So if you want to lose your 6 ounces, just hold bridge tomorrow.
Just hold that.
You know, not the purpose. However,
You could have held
if
it
you're-
longer, but that's hard. That's a lot
Yeah.
of
Yep.
pulling everywhere.
And
But I
when
don't
you-
think I could do it again without you walking me through it.
Right.
I
So the
would-
thing is, if you notice how I cue it, I don't just say anterior tilt, press into the heels and lift. You do it incrementally, because what happens is when you lift the hips, the low back turns off. So you have to like come back down and to your tilt. So every time I teach it, I do like lift an inch, lift another inch, turn those low back muscles on, press again.
I bet I could lift my leg now.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So I have a question.
Sure.
Because you were
Sorry, I
saying
interrupted.
sorry. When you get Charlie horses, you said it's usually because of a weak muscle.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing that and I was fine. But then as I was coming out of it, I got a Charlie horse in my right foot. So what muscle would that be related to?
Where in your foot?
In my arch.
Yeah. So that means you need to strengthen the arches of your feet. Because what was happening is you were pressing into the inner heel and you're pressing into the big toe mound, which turns the arch on. And then you let go of that engagement and it was like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you can, that's something you can do like sitting at your desk. Actually, you don't even have to use the ground. I do this all the time. I do this in therapy. I'll be sitting with people and I go like this. I just like stretch my legs out and
yeah.
People are like, oh, I like sit here like this. I have short legs. So I have chairs that are really deep in my office. And so I always sit like cross-legged or Agni Stambhasana fire log or half lotus or whatever. So when I do extend my legs out, the back of the chair comes to like my high calf. So I can't put my feet down. I look like a kid, like with my feet hanging off and I'm sitting on a futon right now and it does the same thing. So I am always like extending my legs out and like activating. So you just push through the big toe, push through the heel, and the arch of the foot will activate.
Cool, thank you.
You can do that with your Fran Drescher butt work.
Correct. Just I did that watching TV tonight. Activate the
Just be bouncing.
your butt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No one will ever know.
I know.
Oh, we'll know. We'll see it when we see you in a month. No.
Any other questions or any other thoughts? Anything else you guys want to throw out?
No, this was great. Thank you for this.
Yeah, absolutely. So this meeting, I created this. It's got like 7 repeats or something. I just created it as an ongoing repeat. So this is the one you'll come back to. You'll come back to like, it says like Monday night, whatever. And you can just type in the hashtag meetings and it'll pull it right up for you.
Yeah, thanks for doing that too.
Next week. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Bye, guys.
See you soon.
Bye.